Everybody gets sick. The human body is not invincible, and when a foreign substance gets inside, it can wreak havoc on the systems that keep the body functioning properly. That's where the doctor comes in. He or she has the training and experience to identify the illness and set the best course of treatment to help the body fight it off. Sometimes, though, the disease uses the element of surprise. The sweating sickness first appeared in England in 1485, the same year Henry Tudor, later Henry VII, defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field, marking the end of the Wars of the Roses and the beginning of the Tudor dynasty. The onset of the disease coincided with major political upheaval and social transformations in England, adding another layer of dread to an already tumultuous period. The initial outbreak was characterized by its sudden onset and high mortality rate. Unlike the plague, which was already a significant concern during the Middle Ages, the sweating sickness struck swiftly and was often fatal within hours. The disease reappeared in several waves over the next few decades, with notable epidemics occurring in 1508, 1517, 1528, and 1551. Each outbreak caused widespread panic and significant loss of life. There are various theories on the causes of the illness, ranging from contaminated water sources to airborne pathogens. Some theories suggest that it was a form of hantavirus or possibly a type of influenza. Historians believe that it may have been brought to England by soldiers returning from campaigns on the European continent, but the disease's exact origin is still unknown. One of the most terrifying aspects of the sweating sickness was its unpredictability. It did not discriminate by age, gender, or social class, affecting both the wealthy and the poor. Moreover, while the disease primarily struck England, it occasionally spread to continental Europe, affecting countries such as France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany. Entire towns were decimated by outbreaks of the disease, with some estimates suggesting that up to half of those infected died during certain outbreaks. The loss of life had devastating effects on local economies and social structures. Neighbors turned against each other in suspicion and paranoia, with some families isolating themselves in a desperate attempt to avoid infection. Several notable historical figures were affected by the sweating sickness, shedding light on its indiscriminate nature. For instance, Arthur, Prince of Wales, the eldest son of Henry VII, succumbed to the disease in 1502. His death had significant political ramifications, leading to the eventual ascension of his younger brother Henry VIII to the throne. The second Duke of Suffolk, Henry Brandon, died at the age of 15 from the disease, passing the title of Duke to his 13-year-old brother, Charles Brandon, for 1 hour until he too succumbed to the illness. The course of the disease was generally divided into 2 stages. The cold stage, where the inflicted experienced violent shivering and chills that were often described as bone-chilling. That was accompanied by dizziness and an excruciating headache, signaling the onset of the illness. Also, intense pains in the neck, shoulders, and limbs were common, contributing to the overall sense of malaise. Suddenly, the person infected would shift to the hot stage, where the hallmark symptom of the disease, excessive sweating, would set in, drenching the patient in perspiration. That's obviously where the name the sweating sickness came from. A high fever accompanied the sweating, often leading to delirium and agitation. Patients experienced extreme thirst and heart palpitations, indicative of the body's struggle against the disease. The final stage was marked by overwhelming exhaustion, leading to either recovery or, more commonly, death within 24 hours of the onset of symptoms. The rapidity with which the sweating sickness claimed its victims was one of the most feared characteristics. Many accounts described individuals who seemed healthy in the morning being dead by nightfall. That swift progression left little time for treatment or intervention. During the prevalence of the sweating sickness, medical knowledge was rudimentary by modern standards. The exact cause of the disease remained unknown, and contemporary treatments were based largely on symptomatic relief and traditional medical practices of the time, which often included humoral theory, which posited that health was maintained by a balance of 4 bodily humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Diseases were believed to result from an imbalance of these humors, so treatments for the sweating sickness often focused on attempts to restore that balance. Bloodletting was a common treatment back then and was the practice of draining blood from the body in an attempt to cure or prevent illness. It was not an effective method of curing disease and oftentimes made the situation worse. Given the rapid progression of the sweating sickness, that practice offered little benefit and may have even hastened death in some cases. Various herbal remedies were employed to alleviate symptoms. They included herbs like chamomile and valerian, which were believed to have calming and soothing properties. Also, since sweating was a predominant symptom, some treatments sought to encourage sweating further based on the belief that it could help expel the disease from the body. That was achieved through the use of hot baths, warm clothing, and heated rooms. Patients were often advised to rest and remain isolated to prevent the spread of the disease. That was a practical approach that likely helped to reduce transmission to some extent. Despite its historical significance, the sweating sickness holds little direct relevance to contemporary diseases. The exact cause of the sweating sickness remains unknown, and there is no modern equivalent that matches its clinical presentation and rapid progression. The sudden onset and high mortality rate of the sweating sickness bears some resemblance to certain viral hemorrhagic fevers and other rapidly progressing infectious diseases. While the sweating sickness was not identified as a hemorrhagic fever, its rapid lethality highlights the importance of swift public health responses to emerging infectious threats. The need for rapid response and containment measures in the face of a highly contagious and deadly disease is a lesson that resonates with modern public health practices. The sweating sickness also highlights the limitations of contemporary medical knowledge and the challenges of diagnosing and treating novel diseases. Despite advancements in medical science, there are still instances where the cause of a disease remains elusive and treatment options are limited. The sweating sickness remains one of the most mysterious and deadly diseases of the medieval period. Its rapid onset, high mortality rate, and unexplained disappearance have left a lasting legacy in medical history. While there's no direct modern equivalent to the enigmatic illness, its study offers valuable insight into the challenges of diagnosing and managing emerging diseases, the importance of rapid public health responses, and the enduring need for adaptability and innovation in medicine. Luckily, we live in an age where medicine is quite advanced and the knowledge of how to treat most ailments is fairly vast. Just ask yourself the next time you feel that tickle in your throat or when your head begins to pound. Could this be the next sweating sickness? Thanks for letting us tell you this sinister story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and hit like, rate it, or leave a comment. Join us next week when we'll take you somewhere sinister.